All right, I'm calling the meeting to order. Due to the governor's statewide disaster declaration relating to the COVID-19 pandemic and the current public health guidelines for social distancing, I've determined that it's not prudent for the members of the village board or staff to convene in person for tonight's meeting. Therefore, the members of the village board are attending this meeting by video conference. Those are the same conditions requiring barring access to the public for in-person attendance. In light of those limitations, the public is invited to attend and listen to the meeting through the Zoom platform or by phone, as indicated on the meeting agenda. To comply with the Open Meetings Act requirements for virtual meetings, tonight's meeting is being recorded. So if I could ask to start the meeting, if Amy, if you could take attendance and then ask if everyone can be heard, that would be awesome.
Got it. Okay. Trustee Borowski, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. And Trustee Kritzmeyer, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Trustee O'Reilly, can you
I can hear you.
Excellent. Trustee Nora, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
All right. And I know Trustee O'Connor cannot hear me. And Trustee Micho, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I wouldn't be too sure about that though, just so you know, but never mind. All right.
Yes,
So
a couple
She is a mother.
questions.
She is a mother. She can hear all in the back, right?
Hey, here she is. Speaking of Rita.
I told you she could hear us.
Excellent. Trustee O'Connor, can you hear me?
She's still muted, Amy.
You got to unmute, Rita.
There
Yeah,
you
I
go.
did. I'm here. Thank you.
Excellent. We can hear you too.
All right. We're all present and accounted for. Let's say the Pledge of Allegiance, if we may. I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To
to
the
the flag
Flag
of
of
the
the United States of America
To the republic
and to the republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with liberty
and
and
justice
justice for all.
for all.
We need
We need a visual cue. We need a visual cue, Bill.
All right. Well, maybe we'll do
Yeah,
the
we got to practice that.
dancing music or something on the screen when we do it. I don't know. We'll figure that out. This is a very short meeting tonight. Hopefully it lasts less than an hour. We really have one item on the agenda, and this is to review a proposal from Baker Tilly for executive search services for the village manager, the new village manager that we need. We have on the line with us tonight Sharon Klump, who's a director for Baker Tilly, and she's got a presentation that I have that I can share. And she's going to take us through that presentation, and then hopefully we'll have a conversation with Q&A. And then also Ann Lewis is here tonight from Baker Tilly as well. So Sharon, I think I'm going to turn this over to you, and then let me know I can start presenting when you're ready.
Okay. Can you each please identify where you're physically located too?
Absolutely. Well, I'll start. I'm Sharon Klump, and I am located in St. Paul, Minnesota. So not too terribly far away from you all. I'm with Ann Lewis, and Ann can introduce herself.
And I am located out of Washington, D.C. in the Tyson's Corner area of the state of Virginia.
Thank you.
And I think with that, if you would like to put up the proposal or the presentation, I should say, that's the document I'd like, or I can do it too if that's easier for you.
Nope, I'm going to share my screen right now.
All right.
And let me, if I can, I'll put it in presentation mode if that's better.
Yeah, good.
Does that help?
This is wonderful. Absolutely. Good job. Well, we received a contact from the village not too long ago that you were looking for a proposal for executive recruitment services. And we were interested in submitting our proposal. And so this is really the first page of that proposal. And the proposal will go through a number of different things about our firm and our process. it's a great springboard for discussion about how we conduct a search. So we can move to the next page. Okay, well, at Baker Tilly, we are part of the public sector executive recruitment team. You, I know, are aware of Baker Tilly, and you've probably come in contact with Baker Tilly on the audit side, at least based on my review of your website and pulling up an audit and seeing Baker Tilly on it. I know that you have some familiarity. Just our brief history is that in 2019, Ann and I were both with a firm that was called Springstead, and there was a combination of our companies, and we had a public sector executive recruitment practice, and it really goes very nicely with the state and local government practice that is part of Baker Tilly. So we've been enjoying being part of that process and bringing up public sector search services into Baker Tilly. So that's how we got involved with Baker Tilly. Our strengths in our process, first of all, we believe it's a unique, interactive process. We are looking for a highly participative approach, and it also says energetic. Let me tell you that I think momentum in a search is always important. It's important to not let it drag and to keep it moving. Our internal standard of excellence is to really exceed your expectations. That's what we're looking to do. And that's something we take great pride in, very much an internalized standard for all of us. Of course, we want to make sure that we do a compliance with state and local laws. When we work in a variety of states, we're always very conscientious about asking about the different kinds of state laws that might be in effect, and working with you to make sure that we don't run into any problems in those areas. We've done a number of successful recruitments, over 1,500. And I think another piece about Baker Tilly that is kind of special, the people who are on our executive recruitment team, people like Ann and like me, we have experience working in local government. So we're not coming at this lacking the familiarity of some of the things that you are called upon to do. We are accustomed to working with governing bodies. We are accustomed to working with professional managers. So that, I think, is an asset. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So what makes us stand out? I mean, there are different firms that you could be looking at, but I think there are a few things that in our mind differentiate Baker Tilly. First of all, every recruitment is unique. There is a recruitment process. We have explained what that process is in our proposal, but there are unique circumstances in every search that we have to work with. And so it's taking that into account and being able to be nimble and agile in making each recruitment process work with the unique aspects of the community. Our searches are conducted in a timely manner, and it is within budget because we work with a lump sum budget, and that's nice. It just assures you what the price is going to be. We are proactive in seeking out diverse applicants for our search pool. And we use a lot more technology these days. I mean, don't we all in this day of virtual offices and virtual meetings, but we have used technology to really help us in our search process. And then I want to skip to the triple guarantee. I think that's really important. The triple guarantee basically says that we will provide you with a 12-month guarantee should something happen that the individual you place isn't there. That person leaves. It doesn't work. You let that go, or a number of other that can come up. We'll go out and do another search for you. We guarantee to stick with you until you find the right candidate. And finally, we believe that candidates, once they're placed, should stay with their communities for a good long time. And for that reason, we don't go back and start to market them. So it's not a revolving door. You don't have to worry about us placing somebody and then turning around and coming back to them again. Now, they may want to apply for a job that we have, and we will accept their application. We will talk to them about the job, of course, but we are not out there trying to divert them from your organization and into another. So I think that's a really nice feature, that you can have that confidence in our search process. Next slide. So some relevant experience. You might recognize the building on the page. It's a Lake County administration building. And we wanted to use that photo because we've done some work in Lake County. You see the Director of Facilities and Construction, Chief Information Officer. So that search gives us a little bit of an idea of the Lake County area, and also, you know, just what the county is like. While I've worked with them and out of Waukegan, I've also been able to be in Libertyville and some of the other places within the county. We recently did the Boone County, Illinois search. And somewhere on this list, you're also going to see that we did Glenview, Illinois. I think that was back in 2014 or 2015. It's been a little while since we've done that one. And then we've listed a lot of other different kinds of searches that we have done on this page. And then we can also move to the following page. It also has a list of some of the searches that we have recently done. So you see a variety of communities here, variety of sizes, geographic diversity. So that's just a little bit about the background that we have doing searches. So on to the next slide. Well, here you're going to see a few faces that you probably recognize. You're going to see me, you're going to see Anne, but this is our public sector executive recruitment team. We always work on a project by having someone who takes the lead in this search. If you retain Baker Tilly, I will be your lead, but I would work with Anne, who is in Washington, D.C., because we have a lot of remote capabilities and just a pretty vibrant team. She can help do some of that work. It becomes seamless, but you can depend upon me as a contact. And on some searches, we actually kind of work it so if either one of us gets the contact, we respond. And Anne and I have worked like that in the past. You see Chuck Rohr, who is our firm director. Patty Hemanover. Patty is with me in the St. Paul office. Art Davis is in Kansas City. And Edward Williams is in our Texas office. And, you know, I don't know that I want to go into a lot of details about our respective backgrounds. I would just say that I myself have been a city administrator. I have been an executive director of a regional agency. I've been doing the consulting work in search primarily for the last 16 years. And Anne, why don't I call upon you and you can give a little bit of an overview of your career.
So as Sharon mentioned earlier in the introduction, I too have worked for counties and cities here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, having about 20 years of experience in local government. I've done executive search for about 3 years now, between working in local government. And while I may be in the Virginia office, I actually grew up in Wisconsin, just in Racine, not far from you all. So, and still have family there, very familiar with Wisconsin and Illinois, both.
I think Chuck and Art and Edward all have municipal experience. Patty has come to us through school districts, and so her favorite thing is to do work in school administration, superintendents, but she's also collaborated with us on many different searches. So you've got a group of people here who can really assist and make sure that you we stay on track with the search, and that we also can really do a deep dive for candidates. Next slide. This will get us into the process. And so we can talk a little bit about each task. I have a question for President Jacob. Do you want to have questions on each task? Would you like me to go through the proposal and then you can all ask questions? What would be better?
I think you can continue to proceed, but if there are questions that the board has as we go along, I would just ask them to speak up, right? But I would just continue. Yeah. Yeah,
sometimes as part of the presentation actually gets into a lot of dialogue, and I think that serves people really well when that happens. Okay.
This is Ann. I have one already. I know I'm early, but I'd be interested in your previous consulting gigs. Who have different municipalities used as key stakeholders?
Stakeholders, I would say that stakeholders are really defined by the community and who you regard as a stakeholder. We come in and we talk. We want to know who people are interested in having part of this. Usually, the key stakeholder piece could be accomplished through some kind of focus group, and we can do those. We can do those virtually. So there's a way to work with that. We also have the optional web-based survey, and some people use that to reach out to a list of stakeholders. I have one client right now that decided that it had a number of people in advisory committees and people who worked with the organization very closely. And so what we're doing for them is actually sending out a survey. We'll gather those results and it will give them some input. Does that help?
It does. I was just looking for examples that you've worked with.
Good. Well, we want to understand Long Grove, what your current needs are, what you're looking for in the future, because when you do a search, this is really an opportunity to look forward, to think about where you want to go. It's a rather fun time because you can really start to think about the directions that you want to go, or if there's an area where you'd really be interested in seeing people that have more experience, whether it be economic development or finance or what have you. So that's kind of a fun time. We want to talk with all of you on an individual basis. It's helpful to meet the staff members that you have just to kind of get a feel for it. And I know that you have a lot of your services that are outsourced. I'm working for a community right now that has a lot of outsourcing, and they actually had us talk with some of the representatives of the firms that provide their services. And that was very helpful to me, just to kind of give me a good sense of the people that an administrator in this case would be working with. So there's value in that as well. When we develop a recruitment brochure, we really want to present a compelling story about your community and what you're looking for. So what makes Long Grove a great place to live and work? What are the desired capabilities you're looking for? That gets to describing the management style, the leadership style that would work well in your community. What are the professional leadership opportunities? Personally, I've always felt that if you're trying to attract someone through a job, you do it through the opportunities it presents. You kind of hook people with, wow, I could work on that. I could do that. It would be something, really fun for me to do that. So we want to really look at the professional leadership opportunities. We also want to explore salary and benefits, just to make sure that you have a competitive wage rate and that you will be able to attract a good pool of candidates. And then we develop a recruitment strategy. And this is unique as well. We have several places that we usually will submit ads. For example, International City County Management Association is one. I know that in Illinois, you have the State Association. There are various municipal leagues. We have a number of Masters in Public Administration programs that we look to, where there's a connection with alumni, so we can get out the word in that way. We make a good use of LinkedIn. I would say that that is one of Ann Lewis's strengths. Whenever I'm pulling up people, I always see that somehow they're connected to Ann. So she's got a great profile out there that helps us get out the word. A lot of it is word of mouth. So that is a little bit about the recruitment strategy in terms of advertising. The next page, we'll get into a little bit more on recruitment. So advertising, but we really need to be out there contacting people. People are busy. And if they aren't looking for a job, we want to be able to tap them and help them understand jobs that would maybe be a really good fit for them. So there's a lot of it that I think is a service to the candidates. In many communities, there is a sense of reaching out to a diverse candidate pool and making sure that we're looking at people, whether we're talking about experiences, personal characteristics, or what it may be. I think a success to a search is to have a diverse candidate pool that you can select from. We have an interactive searchable applicant database. So there are a lot of people who have applied for jobs recently. Now, this isn't like a stable that we can go and we can pull in certain people. That would not be what this database is, but it is a way that we can reach out to people, or at least use our knowledge from past searches to reach out to people who may be a good match for you. And then the other thing that we try to do during this period of time is provide a periodic search updates. And what we've been doing is really putting together a one-page sheet that will show you how the recruitment is progressing. It'll talk about some of the next steps that come up. And in that way, you'll know where things are. And it's also a good way for us, if we have any concerns that we want to point out, that we can point those out, and we send them to everybody on the board. So it's a really great tool, and something I think you would enjoy. Next slide, thank you. So screening and selection of candidates. Recruitment is very important, but then the vetting process is very critical too. So what we generally do is start with developing an in-depth information form for candidates. And this is a sample of one. We ask them a little bit about recent positions, and then we give them a series of questions, sort of essay questions, 300 words or so, that they're going to provide to us. And the questions are really dictated by what it is you're looking for. This is one of those places we'll come back to the recruitment brochure and say, what are some of the things that we need to know that will get information that will be helpful to you in deciding on the candidates that you like. Now, getting this kind of information alone does not ensure that we are vetting candidates thoroughly. We have a due diligence questionnaire. We expect people to let us know upfront before we start doing too much work. If there are things out there in their background, newspaper articles, they've been let go from positions, there's been a disciplinary issue somewhere along the line. And we ask them to come forward with that information. To me, there's a lot of integrity in that. Things happen and you need to share that information responsibly. And we ask the candidates to do that. And I would say for the most part, they do. We do an internet scan, and we do try to find out what sort of information is out there. That becomes important to letting you know about things that we've learned on the candidates. But also, if we find out that there's some information, when we do our telephone interview with the candidates, we're going to ask them to explain that situation so that we can be sure to give an accurate response to the board so they understand the person's history. Another thing that we do that's very unique is that we have a platform where candidates can record a video interview and you can actually see them present. And with all of this information, you're able to use this to select the people that you would like to advance in the process. So next slide. This is a little bit about the recorded interview exercise. So you see an individual in the screen, you actually get a shot that looks something like this. The candidate gets accustomed to the platform, has a few practice runs, and then when he or she is ready, they click a button and they start to get the questions. So you see here the first question. It would come up, they would see it, they would have 30 seconds to think about their response, and then they would have 3 minutes to answer. And if they didn't like their answer, there's not a do-over. So there's a bit of pressure. I don't think it's extreme pressure, but still, this is going to show you someone's ability to think on their feet and to be articulate, and hopefully to let them know you a little bit better. The questions are not real difficult questions. They draw from a person's experience, so we're asking them to be able to speak from their experience. I will say that board members, I have found, really like this exercise. Candidates, they find it very difficult. They are talking, there is no one for them to look at except themselves in the screen. So that makes it a little bit difficult. I'll also say that I'm interested in the number of times that I have had people say, that person, I'm glad we invited him, I'm glad we invited her to interview, but they didn't seem anything like their video. Well, that's the absence of the nonverbal cues that are so important to our overall communication. Still, I think it's a good way of helping you get another dimension on the candidate. So we can go to the next slide.
To that point, go ahead, Bobby.
If I could ask a question, who tells them about Long Grove? Is that up to them, or do you tell them?
Oh, we're going to reach out to them. We're going to make sure that they have information on Long Grove. And if there are certain things that are important to point out in the recruitment brochure, they will be there. So we're going to, tell that compelling story about your community and make sure people understand it. They certainly are going to have to do a lot of homework. I mean, in looking at your website, I noticed you had a lot of information on it. You had your financial information, which I would expect people to look at and understand. So we would expect they would do that homework. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
And did you have a question too?
Yeah. Thank you very much. My question was going to be related to your comment about the video, and well, they didn't look that much like their video. How often does that happen? And can you talk just briefly about how that kind of triangulates two different facets of a candidate?
Well, I think that when people are doing the video, you will see some people who are more at ease at doing the video, and they're perhaps a little bit more thoughtful on their feet. You will see people that start the video and then something happens. This doesn't happen a lot of times, but I actually had a man that cut his video short because he thought his house was being broken into. And I laughed afterwards because he didn't call and say, hey, I had this problem. We don't usually let people redo it, but I do have a heart. I would have definitely asked him to redo it. I think when I look at the entire search process, I think of having a number of different pieces that fit into a puzzle so that we've got all of these different factors. And so, what happens with the video? Sometimes the video is very strong. More often than not, I would say that the video isn't as strong as the person being there, meeting with you, being able to, sit across the table from you. Still, I think there's value to it. I was, when we started doing this, I was a little bit of a skeptic. I've gotten to the point where I do like it. I try to understand if people felt okay with the video experience. Some people are real comfortable. Other people will tell you, oh my gosh, I really didn't do such a great job on that. And so, we try to understand that, and that helps us answer questions the board might have. Did I give you the information you were looking for?
I think so. It was just, sort of how your experience, how it's, you're looking at somebody from angle A and then angle B, and the video clearly is a different angle.
Right. People can do all sorts of writing for you, and they can talk on the telephone to us about things, but to actually see somebody make a impromptu presentation, it's just another dimension.
Thank you.
Another part of our vetting process is represented by these 3 forms that are really sort of the results of a leadership management style assessment process that we use. So some of you may be familiar with the DISC scale. You see that on the left-hand side of your screen. You see a red scale and a yellow one, a green and a blue. All sorts of combinations there that tell us something about a person's behavioral style that comes out of that. Now, the interesting piece here, you're going to see that there are some kind of short boxes that are over these pillars. So what you're seeing where there's a square, like the green one is probably the easiest, the green and the blue, you see the square and it's above the line. That's what the members of the governing body who took this particular leadership analysis that they were looking for. Whereas those pillars are really candidate responses. Backing up a little bit, the management leadership assessment has 2 pieces to it. First, we would ask each of you to complete a questionnaire thinking about the job and what somebody successful in the job would look like. And it gives us a sense of the top competencies that you're looking for, what motivates people, their driving forces, and the behaviors that would most align with your expectations. And then we're able to understand what your benchmark is and compare the candidates to that. So in this first one with the bars, you see a candidate who actually isn't too far apart from what the board is looking for. Shown again on the circle on the middle page, you see 2 dots. One of these represents the individual, and one of them, so the job is the red square and the candidate is the blue circle. So you see they're really very close on that wheel. That says that there's some good alignment, some good fit, if you will. And then on the very right-hand side, you see what the top competencies, driving forces, and the behaviors were. This was a really interesting situation. This is actually a search that I did where we had someone who was really well aligned. But if you look on customer focus and you see that there's a red box there, a red box signifies that there's not a good sense of compatibility. And we made sure that the interview included questions that would allow us to really judge that candidate on the customer focus. And the sense they had is that this candidate was an awesome fit, but she was going to move things too fast and too hard. And ultimately, they decided to go with another candidate. So this was really amazing. It was a time when I think the process, it didn't answer questions about the candidate's fit. It allowed us to probe in the areas where we had questions and make a decision. So it was very effective. And we would have something like this for you. Next slide. Yes, due diligence review. We do comprehensive background records checks and academic verifications. We also prepare a confidential reference report for you. Now, this occurs after you have selected the people that you want to invite for interviews. So we do a deeper dive at that point on this kind of information. And the next slide. So task 5, the interview process. We will help with the interview design, coordination. We're in attendance, we provide support. And as I say that, and I know the upper Midwest is seeing lots of increases in its COVID numbers, we can do all of this virtually. It may not be the best way to go, but please know that we've been working with candidates and modifying our process however we need to ensure safety for you, for candidates, and just to kind of make it happen. A lot of times we do multiple interview panels, and the value of doing that is it gives you some additional feedback that you can draw from. Now, as I'm thinking about this, you don't necessarily have the department heads because you have a lot of outsourcing. So I don't know how we would structure multiple interview panels, but you might have some ideas. This really goes hand in hand with the stakeholders. It's just that I've learned over the years that governing boards appreciate hearing the thoughts of others before they make their decision. They don't appreciate another panel ranking candidates. No one ranks candidates except for you. But if people are telling you what they see as the assets somebody brings, the strengths they bring, they're sharing where they have some concerns, that's helpful information that can become part of your decision-making process. And then we will also provide assistance in developing an employment offer. A lot of times what we do is kind of that mediary where we're understanding what the candidate is hoping for, what the candidate will accept the job at, but we're also working with you so that we are consistent with what you have in terms of your employment programs. And I put all of the information on here in terms of our contacts so that you would have that information available. And with that, that's the last page in our presentation, and I'm happy to go back and answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation. Well thought out, and we appreciate it. I guess I would turn it over to the board to see what questions they have right now after hopefully looking at the proposal and reviewing listening to the presentation here. So I'll open it up for whoever wants to start. If no one wants to start, I'll call on you.
I have a question. How long in your does it typically take, or on average does your search take?
We try to have people to you within 90 days, and I want to say for us, most searches go someplace between 100 and 120 days. Now, depending on when you start, we're at a difficult time of year with holidays, but still, I mean, I think you just work it through and you start to, work that schedule and make it happen. But that would be what would happen in a search.
I have one other question. Have you ever encountered just a position that you just haven't had a lot of interest in? I mean, like Long Grove is a unique community. Is it, like, have you ever had a stumper?
Jenny.
No, I'm saying, have you ever, like just not had a lot of applicants? And if you don't have a lot of applicants, how do you get enough to represent, to give to us to decide from?
Well, I think it's a really good question. It's a really good question. Because your position is a little bit unique. That said, I think in terms of local government managers, there are a number of communities that manage through outsourcing. And so that takes some different skills. That means that you're going to need to have someone who is able to manage contracts and not just, not just a laissez-faire kind of thing, but an engaged management with how the outsourcing is being done and that performance is being met. I know that any community you're going to have financial concerns. I know you have economic development. You have a TIF district that's going on that is going to require some management. So right there, you start to see some of the things that could be important in the process. And I think you can come back and think about some of the things that are important to you. And that can be reflected in how we do our outreach. One thing that I didn't mention, when we talk about doing a lot of outreach to people, it's not uncommon for us to send out a direct email to 1,000, 2,000 people. Again, word of mouth is really important. A lot of people are motivated to get a job back where maybe they grew up or where they have family. So we see that a lot. I always like that because it means someone is familiar with the area and someone has a commitment to the area. So that's always nice when we run across that. You may find people that just see it as a great job opportunity. For some people to be able to say, hey, I've been able to work on in this kind of community would be something that they would like to do. So we've got to be thinking about how do we reach out to people? Do we reach out to people who have finance backgrounds? Do we reach out to someone with an economic development background? What does it look like? I would say the other thing too is not to look at this. It's so easy for us to say, we think this position requires this many years of experience, this education, and not to really look at people who have the skills, but they don't necessarily have the progression that we're not thinking of. You know, you still have to make sure that it's a fit, but you can find somebody who's maybe worked in a different kind of organization that would come in and do well and be a good match for you. So I think in terms of do you kind of come up dry sometimes? I don't think you're going to have that problem. And the reasons why would be, first of all, I know you can do a competitive salary because I've seen it listed out in your audit. So I know that, you know, you have been able to you know, pay for the skills that you're looking for. Your location, I think being in you know, not too far from Chicago is definitely going to be attractive. And because there are different disciplines that I can see people coming to the job from, I think there's a breadth of folks that you can find. How many people will you get? I don't know. Even if you get 10, which would be a low number, as long as you've got 1 or 2 great people in there, you're still going to come out okay. So just some ways of thinking about it, but it was a great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
What other questions? Chuck, you went off mute. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I find the video interview process very intriguing. I'm wondering, how long have you guys been doing that? Was this something that came out because of COVID or came about because of it, or you've been doing it for a number of years?
We've been, well, I don't know how many years we've all been using it. I have used it for 6 years. And I think it isn't with COVID, but it's really trying to give people a whole nother dimension. And I'd say the flip side is, before I used it, there were times that I would talk with people on the phone. They would have wonderful written materials and they would come in and they weren't the person. And you just knew they weren't the person. I mean, there was something, the fit just wasn't there. I think that we can do better in working with coming up with final candidates for you if you have that video available.
I really like the idea. The fact that people are under pressure, have to answer on their feet quickly. I think that's a really good measure of what type of manager you might be able to get.
And we don't give them the questions in advance. I mean, if someone does really well, I mean, we've had a few rock stars that come through and they just do a phenomenal job. And that, I think that speaks to people too when we see those skills. But we also need to make sure someone, maybe you're not looking for, you know, someone with the outgoing piece. We have to look at what you're looking for.
Rita, did you mute yourself?
Well, I think she just went off mute, so I don't know if she was trying to say something or not. Rita.
I don't know what was going on in the background there. But
I think you got a couple things going on. She's in the airport, so.
I'm here, yeah, sorry.
Did you have a question, Rita?
I do.
Yeah.
Could you tell me how many village managers you've placed in the last 12 to 24 months?
Not off the top of my head. And I don't know if you would be interested in what would happen with, say a village manager, a city administrator, or, you're strictly looking at the village piece. But yeah, I'd have to go back and I could guess, but it would be just a guess, and I don't want to.
I'm sorry, you could guess what?
I could guess, but it would just be a guess.
Oh, I see. I understand. And my next question has to do really, I guess, more with my ignorance. If I was looking for a village manager job, how would I know that Baker Tilly would be a potential source for a job like that?
Well, one of the ways that you would know that is through the advertising that we would do, because we would go to, like when you talk about a village manager, the first place a village manager is going to look at, I'd say there are probably 2 to 3. The International City County Management Association, which has just a huge network of jobs that they're constantly posting. So we see a lot from that. I would also want to find a way to reach out to people in the Illinois chapter, and then also the municipal league. So those are some areas where we can go to right away. If we want to do something a little bit more, try to find people who have some finance skills. We might find somebody who is like in Government Finance Officers Association, and you can reach them through that. And as long as they've got some of the leadership managerial skills, and I've seen a lot of people who've gone from finance into top positions. So that's kind of what I'm referring to. That's how they're going to become aware of us and what we do.
I see. Thank you. Did you, and I may have missed it, did you talk about a fee structure yet?
No, I didn't. We give a lump sum amount, and I just want to.
I have it open right now. I mean, I could share it. It's 24,500 is what I saw.
That's what I thought it was.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just going to check before I said that, but yeah. So what that means is that's your all-in cost. That is going to cover the advertising. It's really going to cover every facet, except if you have on-site interviews and candidates need to travel. The best thing to do is to reimburse people for travel. And, sometimes people set out some specifics on a per diem. I usually tell candidates, you need to be reasonable. You need to demonstrate your financial skills, and reasonable expenses is one way to do it. Yeah, so that's the only thing that wouldn't be there. You will probably have some people who will be, maybe not the immediate area, but definitely able to drive. And so
Sure.
You should not necessarily have lots of expenses for travel.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Bobby, you're unmuted. Did you have a comment?
No, I think that all of my questions and concerns have been answered.
Thank you. Chris, you're quiet, and you always have a good question ready to go, I'm sure.
Actually, I don't, Bill. I was wondering about the fee schedule, which was really my big concern, or something we need to consider. So that's been answered. So I appreciate that.
Well, I did have let's go ahead and embellish on that too, because I don't know if it was clear. How does that work? It shows a lump sum for all the different tasks, right? And it's pretty much everything you described, but is it due in installments at some point? How does that work?
Generally, it's 30% upfront, 30%, I think at the end of phase 1, 30% at the end of phase 2, and then everything after you've made an appointment.
Yeah, I guess that's right. It says 4 installments, 30, 30,
yeah.
30 and 10, I guess, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, a lot of times, I'm probably a public sector soul at heart. I find it hard to do the billing up front without at least having talked with people and kind of being pretty far along on a recruitment brochure too. So yeah, you'll hear from us immediately.
I'm going to ask Chris, I'm going to ask you a question that you asked once before, and that is, how easy do you think it's going to be to find someone, especially at this time of year?
You know, I think what we have to do is look at the opportunity and promote the opportunity. I know that your previous manager was in the community and in the position for, I think people have said 18 years. So I know that that individual had some stability. That's a pretty awesome statistic when you're looking for a job, to know that your predecessor was in the position for a good period of time. So I think it's just one of those things, we're going to work it. People generally understand that another position like this might not come up. We just have to kind of say why this position is unique and lay it out there. I don't know, having done this for 16 years, all different times of the year, I can't tell you that there's one time that's better than another, quite honestly.
Thank you.
We may even get lucky in that, it's a terrible thing to say, but with the shutdowns and COVID, you know, people may have a lot of time on their hands. you know, I mean, every dark cloud, right?
You never know.
There's some truth to that. I think the whole work from home has caused people to evaluate what they value, if they have the, you know, if they have the luxury to do so.
Yeah, you know, things tend to slow down this time of year. You're in the fourth quarter, revving up for budget, but you know, could work in our favor. I do have another question. You mentioned the salary that our former manager was receiving was competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Are you speaking of the base salary or base salary plus the benefits when you say that that's a competitive number?
What I recall in looking at the audit, I recall a salary of $185,000, and then there were other costs that were there that went to the benefits. Yes. I don't really know what the benefits are per se, and benefits are interesting because people look at the benefits in many different ways. You'll get some people who maybe are not even looking for, say, health insurance because they have it through a spouse. I've had people who have gone through the military and they have it through military service. So there are a number of different things that come up in terms of what people are looking at. But I was just really reflecting on the 185. That sounded to me like a very competitive salary. That doesn't mean, I mean, I do understand that that's what you were paying somebody who was in the position for a number of years, but it means that you are going to have a maximum salary that is going to be competitive and should get somebody that has the skills that you're looking for.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
My question was a little, how do we work with both you, Sharon, and you, Ann? How does that work out for us?
Well, the good news is you won't really need to worry about that because I would be the lead and I would be, you know, involving Ann a lot of times. When we do communications, you would see something that would come out and I would be copying Ann on it. And I usually do blind copies to all of the members of a board. In so many states, I found that if you just put every board member's name on the to line, you run the risk of reply all and people saying, hey, there's a problem here in terms of an open meeting and how information is being shared. So a lot of times I just do that as a BCC, and you see the people that we're working with, there's usually one person who is designated as the project manager for the village, and then Ann would be copied and I would be there. You would also see Michelle Lopez. I haven't talked about her. She is the project analyst, senior project analyst, I think is what her title is these days. And she does a lot of the organizational pieces of this and just kind of keeps things moving along and sort of that in between us and the candidates. So you'll see a whole litany of people, but that's so we're all involved and we can all track what's going on.
Thank you.
Sharon, how is your workload if we were to hire you?
I'm close to the end of a number of projects right now. And the other advantage of having Ann on this team, first of all, she and I have worked together and have a real good understanding of process and just seem to be on the same wavelength. So I would be in charge of the project, but Ann would be playing a role in it. And so I think we would handle it just fine because Ann has been back with us for now, what, is this your second week? Ann and I worked, when she was previously with Springstead, Ann and I worked on several projects together and just really had a lot of fun doing it. And I think we realized that we energized each other and kind of kept things moving.
I missed something here. Are you talking your Ann or our Ann?
Oh, Ann Lewis.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm sorry, Trustee Kreismeyer. You must have been nervous there for a moment.
Well, I was getting confused.
I've been gone. I just got back in 2 weeks.
Well, I know you have a pass, so
Well, any other questions?
Thank you. I appreciate the way you ask and try to confirm that you've answered our questions. I appreciate that.
Really. Well, I just want to say that I've appreciated getting to meet all of you this evening and learning about your community in the process. I hope that you select Baker Tilly to do some work with you. If not, it's an important thing to find that next village manager, and I wish you success.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you so much. Say hi to my dad.
Yeah, I already did tonight. Maybe tomorrow.
Okay. Bye.
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 Who's dad?
Bye-bye. What's the story, Jenny?
So my dad's on the city council for Eau Claire, and they are just wrapping up their city manager. And he called me tonight, and he's like, "Are you meeting with Baker Tilly tonight?" And they literally had back-to-back meetings with the Eau Claire and us. So my dad said, "Please say hi to my daughter."
I needed a scorecard.
I know. It's just, I'm like, how often has this happened that you've gone from a father-daughter both on a...
Well, and
wow.
You know, everyone I've had a conversation with, and I had a really delightful talk with her yesterday morning, and I omitted that purposely. So it is funny that she kind of connected it back, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you said something to your dad or what, but
well, my dad was the one I asked who they had used because I wanted to know if they had used GovHR or who they used, and he said, "Oh, we used Baker Tilly for the last one, and we're using them again because we were so happy with them." And so that's why I said, maybe we should consider just having another option. So, yeah, I think I must have said that we were going to be meeting with Baker Tilly, and so
got it.
It just kind of all aligned.
Well, I knew you were. You know, you're the reason why we looked at Baker Tilly, because you said that your father had used them and was very impressed. So it was something that, you know, when I talked to Sharon, I didn't mention it at all. Right? I just was quiet, and it's funny how it came up. So. So we're kind of at the end of the hour, and I don't know if we want to go any further. We have a board meeting Tuesday of next week. Maybe the best thing to do is to think about what we heard tonight and talk about it. I don't think I want to put a live agenda item to approve anything yet at this point. I think we should talk more. If you want to talk more tonight, or it's 8 o'clock at this point, maybe we just table it for now, or what do you want to do?
It sure seems like we'd get more of Rita's attention if we did it a different time, but I could go either way.
Okay.
I can go either way.
Well, I mean, if we can, let's spend a couple minutes. You know, we had the HR Gov guy on. We have Baker Tilly on tonight. What just comparing those two, what are your thoughts?
I liked the Baker Tilly presentation. So
Thank you, Chuck.
I felt
if I had to go in one direction, that's what I'd say.
I felt very comfortable with the knowledge on both sides, but it just feels like personality, the fit felt much more comfortable this evening.
I agree. I agree.
Rita, you didn't get the benefit of seeing, but what are your comments?
I could see it. I have it on my phone screen.
Ah.
Anne said she's more comfortable with what?
With Baker Tilly.
I said I felt very comfortable with the knowledge and the background on both, but the personality fit felt more comfortable with Baker Tilly.
Ah, interesting.
For me.
Admittedly, I'm a little bit distracted. So I don't know that I can go either way, I guess. With, you know, waiting until Tuesday or doing it tonight.
I thought that that looking at a candidate from 3 different perspectives was really, really a benefit. And I like that they used the video in addition to the written and the speaking.
I think I agree with Anne. I think they were both very qualified. I think Anne put together, or Sharon put together a better presentation tonight. But I could go either way. What is there a cost? I can't remember off the top of my head what GovHR proposal was.
Yeah, let me look for it.
I think GovHR was about 20. So
I think it was slightly less.
more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Bill Balling, you do searches as well. And I can't remember what your proposal was for that service off the top of my head either. I wish I had this in front of me.
Yeah, I think it was right where Baker Tilly was priced, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think it was
I
25.
gotta check it, but it's around 25 or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was 25 flat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Bill, are you going to give us a presentation as to what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting for direction from the board on how, you know, where you want to pursue that. I offered it as a service. I'd love to provide a proposal to you. It would be probably different than either one that you've heard before, because, you know, the focus we try to use is really focused on perfect fit. And there's, you know, part of that, and just from being in place right now, part of that is sort of an honest and open SWOT analysis, which we talked about earlier in our individual interviews that we had, to be, you know, directly honest in terms of what are the opportunities, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and concerns that are going to relate to the recruitment, because you know, we don't do a lot of work in the recruitment area, but we try to do it as kind of a boutique operation and really understand what the strengths and, frankly, what their weaknesses and opportunities and threats to recruitment and with permanency. And so, you know, our focus is really to be as straightforward as we can. And what makes most of the search work we do, I do it from a position of being on an interim operation. And that's helpful to me in terms of doing it. My associate that would be working and probably taking the lead on the logistical aspects of the search. We interview as a team all the primary candidates and try to get a kind of build an assessment on who is really going to be the best fit in terms of what goes on. So I'm not trying to discredit the other ones. They do a lot more searches than I do. Like I say, I have to view me as kind of a boutique operation, but also I have a strategic opportunity to add value to the process. But I think there are great opportunities to be the next administrator or village manager in Long Grove. I think there's severe risks on getting the level of permanency that you got out of Dave. And I don't know that you need to get that level of service, but you need to get 5 to 7 years, and as a minimum commitment, and hopefully build on that once you have it. But there's some barriers to doing that. Certainly the facility is going to be a challenge, and that's one of the risks that's going to be associated with certainly an out-of-state person. One of the things I didn't hear from either one of the recruiters was the importance of looking at the assistant pool, because there's some really high quality assistants that are really hungry. And I also have a bias for the Long Grove search to look regional rather than national. And I would define regional in our areas is probably Illinois and Wisconsin would be my focus. So those are things that I would say would be different from what I would put forward. But we, like I said, we try to match get absolutely honest assessment of our needs, and all of us talked about that kind of generally in our first round interview, just from doing the assessment part. And then finding someone that has the staying power and frankly, the knowledge of the regional issues that would add the greatest value. And I think that's where the search would lead depending on the process. I mean, I would be surprised if you get a big pool of candidates. And if you got a big pool, you'd have to look closely at them, because you're probably not going to get a big pool of high quality candidates. Yes, geographically it's important. The village has got a great reputation. I mean, just a really good feeling about a place that people would want to serve. But there's also some honest limitations in terms of the scope and sale. I do agree, and I think both of them mentioned it. I think Baker Tilly more than GovHR. Contract management is going to be really important, because that's going to be your operating model in years to come. And the key part of that is finding someone that's got the ability to select and move people in and out of positions either through competitive pricing or value adds that you need for the specific point in time. So having probably shorter, more aggressive relationships with your contract services, and someone that has managed with that I know when we had our conversations, several of you indicated that there was a closer relationship between the contractors that we have in Long Grove and the village staff that may not be unhealthy in all instances. And I think there's some reality to that. And believe me, Long Grove's not the only community that is in those relationships. It's not all bad, but I think the fact of the matter is, I think a majority of the board indicated that there might be our consulting team sometimes might be driving the bus, and that's a situation that needs intervention. And so someone that has experience in moving people in and moving people out effectively is probably going to be the biggest single value add that you can have looking into a 3 to 5 year window going out. So, but again, when we get a position for a search, we really get it as more of a boutique search, and we really try to spend the time to really understand those barriers and opportunities that would get the best position, the best individual. But I haven't been here for months and months at this point, but this really reads a regional search to me, and one that has the needs to give serious consideration and to what I'll call the assistant manager core, the people that are ready to move on and maybe have 5 to 6 years experience in probably larger communities, but getting one that worked in contract management that would provide that value add, it's really going to be the ones I think you're going to be most satisfied with. And both GovHR and Baker Tilly, I'm sure, recruit assistants, but I did in either of the presentations, I didn't hear anybody talking about that's probably going to be the market that's going to be most attractive to you, created the greatest stability. And my guess is probably on the younger side of the age curve, because you're really got to focus on adaptive technology, and that's generational, and getting someone that can really read through your systems and understand those, I think is really an important value add as well. So, but that's again, I'm still digging into my screening. I still got Reed and I still have to meet, and then I've got to talk to Bill, and so those interviews are pending. And I've got one more staff member that we haven't talked to yet. So I mean, I'm relatively early in the assessment process that would continue to shed light on the opportunities for you. So. You know, I'd love to submit something to you. I understand I'm already under contract with the village. I'm glad to be in the position I'm at. So, but I think in the positions and the ones that we've had, we've really added value and stability, and frankly, stayed very local. And some of the searches we had have gone extremely well. I know we know about or many of you know about the search we did that produced Karen Dalton Lang as the administrator of Lake Barrington. But that's almost a match made in heaven, and that was a highly unusual thing because he was a sitting trustee, and a lot of recruiters would pass on that situation. The Batavia city administrator, likewise, was actually a community representative, but had huge chops in terms of community service, and was also an attorney, which was viewed as a real strategic opportunity. And I mean, you know, I want to say she's probably 5 years in right now in that search, maybe a little bit less than that. So try to find that fit. You know, you're going to find pretty good people, but the other component of fit is, you know, give emphasis, hire for values and train to skill. You want to have people that share values that the Lone Grove board has and shares and develops, and then move on from that. So, but I've been, you know, like I say, I have a great relationship with Lone Grove, and I've got plenty of work to do. Like I say, my associate would probably take the technical lead on the moving ahead, and I would be involved and try to leverage what my pretty extensive networking with the immediate vicinity, which I'll call, you know, I have pretty good chops throughout the state, but Northern Illinois for sure, and then Southern Wisconsin is probably going to be your prime market where you're going to get your best people.
Hey, Bill, I'm just thinking, so maybe the right approach here is you gave us an initial proposal, but maybe you should update that and give it to us. And
sure,
we've got the next meeting coming up, and we could maybe spend some time looking at that
sure.
In the next meeting.
Hey, Bill, we dismissed. I thought we had kind of dismissed Bill Balling's participation in the next step of this just because it's a conflict of interest. And to me, I don't even want to, you know, as much as I enjoy working with Bill so far, and I think he's been uber successful stepping into the role, I really don't want to entertain a proposal for Bill's services in that regard. Secondarily, I think the two companies we spoke with are, you know, even though one of them is maybe more so the recruiting process is more their primary business, and Baker Tilly is, I think they've provided both some pretty good proposals that would eliminate that potential risk and also actually add more resources to it, because, you know, to the point, you know, Bill said his associate would work on it, but they still don't have a recruiting firm or an organization. It's an associate who's a consultant to a consultant. And I just don't have an appetite for that. I'm sorry. Regarding tonight's proposal, I love the dialogue, but actually I thought it was very fluffy. I didn't think it was very substantive. I didn't see a lot of detail in where they would advertise, how they were advertised, what facilities or tools they would use. but the presentation was very, I don't know, almost, I don't want to say emotional, but it was more verbiage than it was substance, in my opinion. And, you know, I don't know if that's good or bad. I just didn't get a sense for just how they would perform that search, even though it was well spoken. The other side is the video. The other proposal we had from GovHR also included video that they would charge us for per video if we so chose. So Baker Tilly is $5,000 more. That's, sorry, Rita, you're still cracking up there. I mean, it's $5,000 more. That's a lot of videotapes from GovHR, you know, if we wanted to go that route. So I think there's enough to consider here between the two choices.
Thanks, Chris, for your thoughts. It's appreciated. Does anyone else want to share thoughts that is how we proceed next? You know, do we want to hear more from Bill or look at the two proposals we have?
I guess I sort of agree with, go ahead, Chuck.
I was going to say, I'd be willing to hear more from Bill.
Okay.
I agree with Chris on some levels, to be honest with you, but I think Bill hit it right on the head. We're going to probably do best from a local search. And personally, you want to talk about money, bringing in an assistant, a good assistant, and giving him his first opportunity, or her, the first opportunity to be a village manager. I think there's a lot of benefit to that. And we're not going to have to start out at 185,000.
We can direct the GovHR or Baker Tilly to keep it local. We don't have to say go nationwide because we don't, you know, we don't want to do that. We can tell them what our focus market is. We could say, hey, your candidates are coming from Illinois and Wisconsin, unless there's some superstar who wants to move to Long Grove, you know.
Michigan, Northern Indiana.
Right.
I guess I tend to agree with Chris in terms of it's not personal to you, Bill. It's just more of the conflict of the motivation, you know, to cut the interim short to get the next permanent person in. It's just that construct, I think, becomes a conflict. I absolutely think that you're going to add value to the process no matter what, based on what you're doing as interim manager, and I really value that and appreciate that. But you know, from my own personal standpoint, I would agree with Chris, and not to waste your time to do more on that side, but more on the interim side that you're digging into, and we appreciate that so much. That's my view.
Yeah, and I don't want to leave any doubt. I mean, I really value the relationship with Long Grove, and whatever decision is made on a policy level. I mean, my goal and part of the successful transition is to make sure that I add value to whatever process and recruiter that you put together. I mean, I don't feel awkward about that, but you know, it was in my initial proposal. We do those services. It seemed to be a good fit for that, and you know, I know that my primary role here is to serve as your interim village manager and to conduct the operational assessment. The only concern I have, and I don't think it really is a concern, because I think there's going to be a stubborn resistance for high quality candidates to come in over the winter holidays, and combined with COVID, it's going to be a double challenge. And both of them have said, well, we'll get somebody here in 90 days. 90 days would put a huge burden on me to wrap up the assessment properly. And so my primary concern in terms of meeting the objectives that the village has retained me for in a search is I line the calendars. If you bring in an outside person, that makes it realistic and an opportunity to complete the assessment. Because I think the assessment is going to, I mean, I enjoy the interim assignment, but the assessment is really going to be the important part, and the primary value add that I think my firm and myself is going to be providing the village. So it's more of a balancing act in terms of what it is. And I've heard that in other proposals that we made where, hey, no problem, it's going to be 90 days. Well, you will find individuals in need in 90 days, but the opportunity seasonally is important. COVID will have an effect. And this is we want somebody on a career decision that's not necessarily unemployed at this point, that has some opportunity and ambition that they want to produce and test their wings And that's what I mean, I really like the profile of a really good assistant deputy village manager coming forward that I think this entire board would find appealing. I don't think it has to be limited to that, but I also don't think, I think you're in a unique position as a board to really move ahead with probably a 10 to 12 year decision and have you know, put your stamp on that decision, and getting a pool of, you know, 3 to 5 really good candidates that will breed, you know, good debate is an important thing for you.
Hey, Bill, Rita's at the airport. She's got to run. So I'm just trying to think of how do we, I mean, just let me do a quick query. So Rita, what's your thoughts on tonight? Do you want to wait and do it at the next board meeting? As far as do we have 2 people that said that we should not look at Bill. What do you think?
I'm comfortable. I'm more comfortable with GovHR or
okay.
Or Baker Tilly.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Thank you.
That's what we needed to know, Jenny.
I think as much as I do think that Bill Balling will bring great insight in the search, but I think that I would prefer to go with Baker Tilly or GovHR. I like their a little bit more resources.
Bobby?
I think we get the best of both worlds. Well, Bill will help us with Baker Tilly or the other one, either way, and so his knowledge will be useful at that point also. So I agree that we should stick with the 2 that we've got, and let Bill do his job that he's been hired for.
Okay. All right. So then maybe what we should do is let's not rush a decision tonight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about it on Tuesday night. We've got the 2 proposals. We'll have to see what, I guess we'll look at them, make sure nothing needs to be tweaked, but let's talk about it on the agenda, and then we can plan a course forward, right? We may need additional information from either to make a decision, but I guess I would encourage you to look at both proposals, think about it, and maybe come to the meeting on Tuesday night with what you think, right? We can make a decision.
Is it possible for, I mean, I'm happy to volunteer. I don't know, Bill, this would be better served by you just to call somebody that has worked with both of them to get a reference?
Sure. Yeah, let's get a reference.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, would that be your dad?
Well, not my dad. It's a little biased. But somebody else.
No, actually, you know,
the
it's
fact
not a
that
bad
he hired
idea,
him
probably.
twice, though, Baker Tilly twice, is pretty good.
If you would give me your dad's information, I will call him.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'll ask for references and I'll see if I can get that done before Tuesday. So, yep.
I actually also have a friend who was interviewing for the Eau Claire city manager position. And I think I'm going to reach out to her and find out how, on her end, how she liked working with them, to see if she has any insight, like, because she's done she's worked in government quite a bit. So she might have some interesting thoughts.
All right. So let's do that. We'll get, I'll get references and try to call them before Tuesday. And let's get back together on Tuesday night and let's chart our course forward.
Thank you.
Sounds great.
Thank you so much, Bill and Bill.
Yeah,
Bill
so
and Bill, thank you.
Thank you. So let's do this now. We have to formally close out the meeting, and there is nobody from the public here. So I would ask, is there any public comment? I'm assuming not, but I think Chris had public comment last time.
But Amy, let the notes show that we asked for it.
Dude, I missed that. What'd you say?
Let the notes show that we asked for public comment.
Yes, that's right.
You
Let the
got
record
it.
show we asked for public comment.
You got it. It'll
All right,
be
so
there.
so who wants to make a motion to adjourn the meeting? Okay, moved by Trustee O'Reilly, seconded by seconded by Trustee Michaud. Roll call.
Okay, Trustee Borowski.
Yes.
Trustee Kritzmeyer.
Aye.
Trustee O'Reilly,
Yes.
Trustee Nora,
Yes.
Trustee O'Connor,
Yes.
Aye.
and Trustee Micho.
Yes.
All right, meeting adjourned. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night, everyone.